Hey fellas, how you doing? I want to share something really personal with you. I didn't plan on making this video. I was actually about to go to sleep and I couldn't sleep. I watched a couple of things on YouTube. And I think this is my inner child speaking. I just want to say this before I do this video because this is a real issue I have with myself, and that's speaking about myself. Sometimes it feels really strange. I feel like I'm being egotistical or selfish. I don't know, it's hard, it's really difficult. But every time I try and teach over YouTube or do videos in this way, it doesn't feel natural. I'm not being myself. Does that make sense? So I'm talking about myself for a reason in this video. Firstly, I'm talking about myself because it makes me feel good. It helps me to clean stuff up from the past. And secondly, because it's going to help a lot of people. And I'm just justifying this for myself, just for my own sense of, it just makes me feel better. So when I go on YouTube and I'm justifying it, when I watch people and I want help, I want to get inspired or overcome certain sticking points, I really love it when they speak about their life story. Like, I want them to speak about themselves, how they overcome it. So, a lot of people may not know this, but for years growing up, I really hated confident people. I had a real issue with confident people. They intimidated me. They made me feel really jealous. It's kind of hard to explain because it's weird growing up because my whole life, especially throughout my 20s, I purposely didn't allow confident people to come into my life. That probably sounds really strange to a lot of people, but I didn't like confident people. I didn't like the fact that they were socially comfortable and I wasn't. And I always felt like confident people were going to try and control me. They were going to intimidate me. They were going to abuse the fact that they were socially relaxed, they were confident, and I wasn't. And I was always worried that they're going to see, well, everyone could tell I was really nervous and I wasn't confident in myself by my body language, my anxiety, and the way I spoke. So I unconsciously and consciously avoided building friendships with confident people. And I always made friends with, and I felt bad for thinking this, but this is the truth at the time, I always made friends with people that were on the same level as me. The same level as in self-esteem and confidence. They weren't really confident growing up. You know, sort of in my teens growing up, most of, if not all my friends, like my close friends, who I really liked, don't get me wrong, I really liked them. And obviously we had a lot of intimacy and time together when you're growing up. But deep down the truth was, I wasn't my true self, obviously, as I've shared, because of my social anxiety disorder. And it just came to me now. And this is why I love spirituality. This is why I love spiritual work, healing work, even though it's really painful, especially when I teach. This is probably why this came to me today. So I've been doing a lot of coaching sessions over the last few weeks, especially this week. And it's been really helping me to actually help other people. I'm almost healed. And I don't say that arrogantly, but it's bringing up stuff from the past. It's like sticking points I had 15 years ago. It's like they're just coming to me now. It's like God is just going bang, showing me that, showing me my life back then and helping me to understand why I was like the way I was and why I felt like that. And I felt really frightened that I was intimidated by confident people, because I've been thinking in my head, I'm actually really scared to actually think this about people. I don't even want to say this out loud. People are going to think I'm a psycho. They're going to think I'm a really nasty person. But I know the reason why. I know why I was like that. Sorry, it's getting hot. It's really hot in here. I know why I was like that. And I was actually afraid to admit this. I was actually afraid to say this out loud because of the fear of putting my father in a bad light. Obviously, because I love my dad and I've spoken about him a lot. And I feel, again, I don't want to blame him for everything, but this was the truth back then. He broke my confidence at a very young age. And this is another realisation I got. Growing up, I idolised my dad. It's probably a very common pattern with most men. That's why he hurt me. That's why I had a fear of abandonment, because I loved the guy, I idolised him. Everything he said, I just was always hanging on to every word he said. And I always I wanted to be like my dad in many ways, but in some ways I didn't like him. I was frightened of him because of the abuse that he carried out on me. I couldn't understand it. When he was very nice and be nasty. And interestingly enough, deep down, and again, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, I was naturally a confident guy when I was born. Because there's a lot of contradictions in what I'm saying. My dad was naturally confident. I noticed that growing up. I noticed the way people behaved around him. Everyone did it, obviously, because people were frightened of him as well. But his natural essence, his natural character, without all of his pain bodies and his issues, was very confident. Just the way he sat in the sitting room, just his body language, just his posture. You know, when you're a young kid, you sense, you see things. You don't need to read psychology on body language. He was very confident, and just the way he interacted with people. Obviously, with me, he was really nasty when he was aggressive. When he was nice, he was very nice. But the way he spoke to his friends, just the calmness when he spoke, and the respect that he got from people. So when I seen that growing up, I thought I want to be like that. And of course, he was a tough guy, and I wanted to be tough. He symbolised for me what it was to be a man. In his heyday, he got a lot of women. Women were very attracted to him. My mum even told me about that when my mum had met my dad, that he was very popular and he had hundreds of friends. He was a very popular man growing up. So I really loved this part of my dad. Of course, I didn't like the angry side, and this is really what he made me unknowingly. Obviously, he didn't go out of his way, but because of the abuse that he carried out on me. When I was myself, when I was confident in my earlier teens, 10, 11, 12, he criticised me, he called me names. Sorry to use graphic language, but he called me a stupid cunt. I know I've said this before, he called me a mummy's boy, and he just said to me, why are you talking like that for? Don't talk soft. He said, and he questioned my masculinity. But I remember in those moments I was my true self. And I remember thinking as a kid, I remember processing this when I was younger, and crying and just sitting there feeling sorry for myself, thinking, what is going on? Because I've just been punished by my dad for being myself and being confident. Surely he's meant to be happy. Like, my brain, my psychology at a young age was trying to rationalise and understand what was going on. And the reason why I knew it wasn't right, because when I was confident, my mum rewarded me. Like, my mum actually liked it. Like, I got approval from my mum. Like, my mum laughed. So my unconscious, when I was confident around my mum, I got love. When I was like that around my aunties, I got love. They liked it. When I was like that around my nan was always lovely to me, however I behaved. But when I was confident around my dad, he withdrew love from me. He attacked me. He bullied me. He criticised me. So my psychology, and it's interesting because I just thought of this now. It just goes to show how important my father's approval was to me. And I just realised that now. I've had to have a realisation, a flashback. My dad's approval was more important over my mum's, all my family's, the whole world. Because I literally see my dad as a god. I thought everything my dad said was right. So when my dad questioned me and he just criticised the way my behaviour, social anxiety was diagnosed straight away. And then I lost all my confidence because my unconscious was, I've got to protect myself. I can't be confident around my dad. And then I went deep and I remember thinking, and I know I'm contradicting myself, but this is how my mind was working. He doesn't like it when I'm confident because it makes him feel uncomfortable. And that scared life out of me. Because my deeper psychology was, if I'm confident around my dad, he's going to abandon me. So I've got to act according to how he wants me to act. And that meant not being myself. That meant actually being submissive and low self-esteem. So that's why there was so much confusion in my family. When my mum would come into the room, like, I'd almost go into, I'd feel tight, I'd feel terrified, and I would almost, I can't even explain it, but the dynamics in my family it's weird. And I'd always be looking for my dad's approval. And I remember we used to sit up some nights, he would call me down and watch films all night. And even though I was scared of him, it's weird, I was scared of him, but I did enjoy it. and I didn't really get to talk much. But as the night would go on, he'd get nicer, he'd open up more. Then I would start talking to him a bit more, and I would always be kind of cautious. Can I say that? Is he going to be okay? And then when he would give me the green light, I feel so happy. I feel so much love, so much freedom. There would just be, I'd feel safe. I felt safe as a young boy. But then there would always be a limit. Then the next day I'd wake up and he'd be different again. He'd look at me, he'd be serious. I couldn't look at him. He'd be angry. He might shout at me, do something. And it's like this really confusing dynamic with my dad where I didn't know how to act. And I had to always wait for signs. But with my mum, I could be a lot more of myself. And as I said, my family. But even my mum changed when my dad came in the room. My mum used to say, "Oh, your dad's coming, your dad's coming." So, you know, my mum, it's weird, my mum was, this whole orchestrated dynamic in the household was fear. And that's why I wore a mask around my dad. And it's just weird, I'm just trying to collect all the memories. And when he used to take me football and take me out, he used to play football, I would be myself. And he wouldn't mind that. It's weird how he didn't mind me being confident playing football on the pitch. He encouraged it, he loved it. But when I finished playing football and came off the football pitch and we walked home together, I'd go back into reclusing again. So I was like morphing in and out of a confident kid or boy and then unconfident to please my dad. So I was people pleasing my dad. Now I was mirroring my behaviour according to always keeping him happy, and I could tell when he wasn't happy by his facial expressions, with breathing. I just got to know all of his behaviours. So going to school, growing up, I really started to envy and hate confident people, and I realise now it makes a lot of sense to me. And I feel really uncomfortable saying this, but I'm going to say it, and here I am now talking into a camera, a confident man. I forget how confident I am, because sometimes I don't see it. I actually forget. My programming is still quite strong from the past. Even though I've overcome all this anxiety, I feel really good in myself. I forget what I've achieved and how I am. Sometimes in my own mind, I'm still that kid who's shy. I'm still the kid I'm not sure, I'm still a bit shy. But I'm not like that anymore. But there's still a story. It's very vivid, it's almost going now. And I got an answer that I've been looking for a long time. So for me, confident people represented my authentic self. People that weren't confident, God bless them, because I wouldn't judge anyone. They're just, at that particular stage in their life, they're not confident like I wasn't. They made me hate myself. Therefore I hated them, which I hated everyone. But my true self didn't hate anyone, of course. So that's why all my relationships up to a certain point were always with people that weren't confident, because it reflected myself, what I put out. And that's why I wasn't happy in my relationships growing up. I always felt isolated, I always felt lonely, I felt disingenuine. I felt I'm to blame. I felt like I'm not being a good friend. I actually felt guilty all the time in my relationships with people, and this all reflected back to my dad. So the relationship my dad played out in all my social relationships. Now, in the midst of saying that, I've said it before, of course, I had friendships with some of my best friends from childhood, a couple of friends, one of them in particular, I'm not going to say his name, but I love the guy. Actually, he was very confident, but my other relationships were always relationships with people that had lots of social problems, issues, dysfunctional. And so it almost felt my whole life I sabotaged myself. I self-sabotaged myself. I put myself down in everything I did. Even with my job, I didn't want to be a carpenter. I went out and I've become a carpenter. Just to lighten this subject a bit, just to make a joke, I know that Jesus was a carpenter, and a lot of the Irish are carpenters, and I kind of liked it, but I didn't want to do it. I did it to please my dad. And I was really grateful that my dad got me a job on an apprenticeship, but I lost my temper and lost the job because one of the guys on the job tried to bully me. But when I look back now, he didn't try to bully me. That was my insecurity because of my anxiety. He was actually very, very nice to me, but I was intimidated by him because he was a confident Irishman. I was a kid. I thought he was trying to take the piss out of me. So this anxiety and fear of abandonment, which came from my dad. So it's weird that, whether my dad done this on a conscious level, unconsciously, he threatened me with abandonment or rejection, because I know deep down that somewhere in his psychology, he had a fear of me upstaging him, outdoing him, and I knew that as a kid. And my psychology was so paranoid and so worried about hurting my dad's feelings. It was almost like me, it was, in a sense, it was me trying to upstage God. And of course, if you look in history, and you look in things like Christianity or any religious stuff, which has been obviously indoctrinated into a lot of us, I'm not saying that's good or bad, so I got a strong faith, that's what I got my cross on. But my belief was, I can't outshine God, because that is the ultimate arrogance, and I'll be punished for that. Almost like I'm going to go to hell, and I was in hell for years anyway. So there's this real confusing story, and this is why I was intimidated by businessmen, men in suits, the symbol of confidence, or the American salesman, the Tony Robbins. Not Tony Robbins, not to be personal with Tony Robbins, but that archetype that we see on TV, that was confident in a suit, attractive, white teeth. I didn't like that archetype because it made me more insecure, because deep down I was that person in my own personality, as we all are deep down. But I couldn't be that person around my dad because he rejected that, and he criticised me and he attacked me. And it's confusing because, as I said, his true self, as far as I can see, was confident. His insecurities, like my insecurities, his insecurities ruined that on many occasions. And when he was nice, he was congruent, I loved being around him. So did the family. It was great to be around, but it just wasn't consistent enough. And that's what congruency is about. It's about being consistent. It's not being perfect, but and that's why we build trust. That's why I couldn't trust my dad growing up. That's why I didn't trust men. I didn't trust my mum, because there was not enough consistency in my house growing up. And that inconsistency, that anxiety, that dysfunctional relationship, that reflected in me. So that's why in my life I was never consistent with my finances, with women. My whole life was dysfunctional because of a splinter of my psychology. My conditioning said, you cannot be confident, Jonathan, because if you're confident, it intimidates people, they're going to abandon you. So I purposely lowered my standards in every area of my life. I did that. In every area, even with the women I dated, I would always say, no, she's too attractive for me, I'm not good enough, let me go for a woman who's less attractive. And I'm not putting anyone down, I'm just telling the truth. So I ended up, for many years, not dating the right women because of this story from my dad, because of this criticism. And a few times when I did have the courage to finally challenge my dad on this, he would say, I never said that, I don't want that for you, I want the best for you. But I didn't believe him. Even when he said, I want the best for you, I love you, you're my son, you're my blood, I didn't believe it. Like intellectually I wanted to believe it, even though I went, yeah Dad, but my psychology didn't believe it. You can't lie to your deep subconscious when you're a kid and when you became a young adult. And this just kept getting worse for me in my 20s, and I just got this realization today. And it's interesting that at 23 I had a huge light bulb moment, and that was when I met Floyd. And I remember my first impression of Floyd. I spoke about Floyd a lot, and I said to myself in my head, I remember saying, fucking hell, he's really confident, this guy. I haven't met someone in a long time with this type of confidence. And I'm talking about confidence where a person is not arrogant, they're not trying to bully people, they're actually a nice person and sociable and comfortable. And that's, we have that kind of, I can't explain it. It's hard to explain, but everyone's had it, like this divine connection where I felt safe around Floyd, and I didn't trust men at that time. Even though I had friends, I never fully trusted friends, even up to 23. There was always a bit of me not sure to show myself. But I didn't feel that around Floyd, and I realised why. Because deep down I was looking for approval from a man, my father or men, to be confident, and he gave me that. Floyd was the only, well, from what my memory can serve me right at that time, because the friends around me didn't give me that approval. They were jealous, they were insecure. I couldn't be myself around them. I was the same, I was projecting that. And that's why I struggled with women for so many years. And as soon as I met Floyd, he said one thing that transformed my life. He didn't teach me a technique. He said to me, I said, I can't do it, I can't meet women, that woman's not like me. And he just said, very simply, and I believed him when he said it, he said, of course you can meet her, you've got it. He said something like that, of course you can meet this woman or get women, you've got it in you, you've got it in you. And when he said that, I believed it. And he said it, he was being genuine. It was almost as if I was hearing it from my dad, if that makes sense, on a very deep level, this projection. because I needed approval from a confident man that was not going to attack me and abandon me. And of course, Floyd didn't do that. We built a good friendship, known him for over 10 years. And that changed my whole life with women. That changed everything, because I started getting good results with women. And it's not an arrogant thing. There was a sense that I always knew I could do this, but people were holding me back. My dad's holding me back, my friends are holding me back, my story, the bullies at school, the incident at 16 when I couldn't get an erection with a girl, girls that took the mick out of me. So this story, this is what gave me social phobia. And that's why I was, because I remember I used to sit in my house and think to myself, why am I complaining that I don't have any money? Why am I complaining that I've got low self-esteem, depression? I was almost saying to myself, what else do you expect? You grow up in a poor area, there's no point in getting jealous of other people that are doing well, because statistics show you're not expected to do well. You're expected to be in a 9 to 5, but deep down I knew that wasn't the truth. So I couldn't even bullshit myself. I couldn't even bullshit myself into believing that I'm not good enough, because I knew I was good enough. I knew that everyone was good enough. And I knew what my dad had said was wrong. It came from unconscious insecurity or threat of being upstaged by a son. And it's very common in these relationships, even with mothers and daughters, there's an element of jealousy. Jealousy is that's a huge part of social anxiety. That's why I'm such a jealous person. And I'm thinking, it doesn't fit, and excuse me, of course, the jealousy was not my true self. I'm not trying to intellectually use a spiritual language to cop out of that. I knew that wasn't my true self, because there's nothing to be jealous of when I was my true self and confident, because I attracted everything I wanted. I felt good around people. I didn't feel hate towards people. And I felt a lot of love towards Floyd. I didn't feel animosity towards him like I felt before with previous friends, because of how paranoid I was. And my results just got better around him. And as I said, he was humble with his confidence. And I remember when I started doing well, I got scared, because unconsciously, my unconscious is my dad gonna like this? That's why I was scared to bring girls to my house, in case my dad got jealous, or in case he freaked out, abandoned me for bringing home an attractive girl. It's a lot of confusion on my psychology with confidence, and it makes sense. And this is really weird to say this, but this is the truth. When I used to stay at my nan's, all the time, and there was a spare bedroom I'd stay. And this has got, I don't even know why I'm saying this, but this is pure truth. This just came to me today. I was obsessed with the Jonathan Ross show. I used to watch it. And I used to love watching it, because I used to love watching all the actors that would come on. There'll be guests every week on the Jonathan Ross show. This is going back about 10 years. I don't even know why I loved it, because I didn't even really like TV programs. There was a divine connection. I had to watch this show. And it sounds mental to say this, but I enjoyed watching these actors because they're so confident. They were so confident. They were confident to the point where they even played their confidence down. They were humble. When Jonathan was saying it's amazing what you've achieved, just the way they sat, I used to watch how calm they were. The way they sat, I used to think, I used to feel jealous. I used to feel jealous of these actors, Oscar-winning awards, Denzel Washington, Leonardo DiCaprio, all these Hollywood actors, and I used to think, why am I watching these? Like, who am I to watch these people? I'm just a guy from the council estate. I'm a nobody. But I felt a connection. I need to watch this. God wants me to watch this. He's showing me something. Because that voice always says, you don't have a right to say that. I do have a right to say that. Because I thought one day I'm going to be confident like these people. And I'm going to achieve success in my life. I don't know in what form that's going to come, but I know I'm going to do it. So I've been through too much shit in my life and I'm living with a mask on. And I'd seen and heard that some of the stories that these people had come from damaged backgrounds turned their life around. And I always felt good. I couldn't explain it. I watched it all the time. I watched all these different actors. And I watched their body language. I watched how they respond. I even remember the sort of questions they'd get asked, how they would deviate the question when Jonathan Ross would say, you're amazing, and they'd always downplay it. And I loved that, because I've seen that in myself, that humbleness. They were never, some of them are arrogant, most of them were not arrogant. They'd say, oh, I'm still nervous about acting, or I didn't achieve much. I connected on something very deep. It was like a projection. It was a part of me that I had lost, that my dad had taken away, that I knew was there. They were confident, they were talented, they were different. Some of them were socially weird. I resonated with that. And it happened in school growing up. I got bullied for being myself and making the class laugh, and the teachers liked me. That's why I became so violent. because it made other men jealous. I had a lot of fear around being confident. And now I'm not afraid of confident people because I am confident. It's mad, it makes no sense. But it's the truth. This is the truth.